We are really honored and humbled to be endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police in what is the freest state in these United States.
Yeah!
We saw over the last 2 years, state after state throw people's rights into the graveyard. Florida stood as freedom's vanguard. We protected people's right to work. We protected small businesses and kept them afloat. We made sure all of our kids actually went to school 5 days a week in person. And you don't even see that right now in certain parts of the country. So we stood up for people's rights. We empowered them to make the best decisions that they could. And the result is, our state is booming. We have a massive budget surplus. I was talking about we did the bonuses, which we were happy to do. I put it in the budget again. We're going to do $1,000 bonuses again.
Yeah.
Although, we put it in for $1,000 and it's good. And while I don't have enough to do $100,000, I may have to do a little recalculation because you look at the inflation over the last year. When I did it last time, we didn't have the big inflation, so I may need to add a Biden-inflation increase cost of living on your bonuses. We'll see what happens. But we're proud to do that. But so we worked hard. People have responded. The state is doing well. People are much I've never seen. I grew up in Florida, born and raised. I've never seen a time where people are more proud to be from Florida. People go to other states and they'll be told, "Hey, you're lucky. You're so lucky. You're from Florida. We wish we were governed the way you are." And so we're proud of that. But here's the thing. You can sit there and say, we're going to be free, we're going to do all this, and it's important in the economy and all that. You don't have public safety, if you don't have the rule of law, none of it matters. And you look at the people that have decided to invest in Florida, people have moved in Florida. Yes, lower taxes. Yes, respect their rights and not have COVID lockdowns. But I'll tell you, the disorder and the crime and the rioting you've seen throughout our country has caused so many people to reevaluate, what's important in life, and they understand that you have to have safe communities. And the only way you get to safe communities is to have men and women who want to put on a uniform and go out into dangerous circumstances, putting their self at risk in order to defend others and defend their communities. And that's what we have in the state of Florida, up and down this state. And I'm so proud of the people that have done that time and time again for us. And we, as was mentioned before, it was actually fashionable to bash the police. You go back summer of 2020, corporate media was bashing them, politicians, all this other stuff. And in Florida, we never budged. We never once indulged the narratives. We never once went down that road. And in fact, when you start to see disorder around the country, we called up our National Guard. I had my state law enforcement, and we told every local law enforcement agency, we've got your back. Do your job, keep order. And the result is, what you saw in Florida over that time paled in comparison to what you've seen in many of these other states. And so that was something that's very important. We did, though, as was mentioned, we weren't just going to rest on that. We enacted legislation last year, which does really, I think, two important things. One, we say to every single local government in the state of Florida, we are not going to let you defund police, okay? If you do it, we're putting money back in. We're not going to have you sacrifice the safety of your citizens based on some half-baked ideology. And so defunding law enforcement is dead on arrival in the state of Florida.
Yeah!
But what we also did in that bill was say, look, you look around the country, like in Portland, they riot like every night in Portland. So they'll go out, they'll riot, they'll get arrested, they go in, they take their mug shot, then they slap them on the wrist and put them right back on the street to do it again. And what we said in Florida, look, if you riot, if you loot, if you're engaged in mob violence, particularly if you're attacking police officers, you're not going to go in, get a slap on the wrist. You're getting the inside of a jail cell, and you will be held accountable. And that's what we have to make sure that our streets are safe. also see the spike in crime in many of these places throughout the country. I can tell you, there are some people that if they were in charge of Florida, they would mimic those policies. And what you've seen is they've taken money away from law enforcement. They haven't supported law enforcement. And you know, the checks and stuff, when people got it, most of them came up to me. Obviously, everyone wants to get better compensation. It ain't like you're rich in public service. And so that's helpful. But honestly, most people said it mattered to me because it just showed that you guys cared and you had our back. And in a lot of these communities, they go out in these situations, they know they don't have support from the community and the politicians and all these other people. So why would you want to put your butt on the line? Why would you want to go out there in harm's way knowing that it's a thankless endeavor, and if something happens, you're not going to get any support on the back end? So yes, them taking money has been bad, but the lack of support has been, I think, just as bad. The result is you've seen crime skyrocket in some of these places. Now even some places like Seattle, they're trying to fund more police because they realize how disaster it is. But the thing is, morale is so low, people don't necessarily want to work in those agencies, and how can you blame them? So those policies have been disastrous. You also have soft on crime policies in different jurisdictions around this country. They abolished cash bail in New York. They just keep putting them back on the street. And then you have people that are committing even more crimes. You look at different things of sentencing where they'll release people. Very serious criminals will be released early rather than serving their entire sentences. None of that is acceptable in the state of Florida. We are not going to allow that to happen. But then you also have, in certain jurisdictions, very radical prosecutors who get elected and basically say they're getting elected not to prosecute a lot of crimes. If they don't like the crime or it conflicts with their ideology, then they don't prosecute it. So the result is, you go in like San Francisco, you just go into the store and steal what you want. As long as you're not stealing more than $1,000, you take it and you go. And it's terrible for the economy. Stores close. But what it does is it breeds a culture of lawlessness, and it causes other crimes to go up too. So those types of prosecutors in Florida will not be allowed to operate. You don't have the right to disregard the law. You have to faithfully execute the law, and if you're not doing that in Florida, we will absolutely hold you accountable. What we've been able to do, whether it's the bonuses, whether it's the anti-rioting bill, protecting against defund police, and those are all very important things. But I can tell you right now, Bill working through the legislature has a lot of my law enforcement priorities, and even more good stuff. Is probably the strongest, most pro and law enforcement piece of legislation in the entire country. And what it does is a number of things, and what I've said is, look, we have a great historic opportunity to make Florida, bar none, the #1 place for law enforcement careers. And so we're looking out at Seattle and Minneapolis, New York, all these places where they're not treated well. And what we're saying is, if you come to work in a Florida agency, we're going to provide from the state a $5,000 signing bonus. And people are going to be rushing to be able to do that. That bonus, though, is also going to apply to young people in Florida who choose to go in to law enforcement. And basically what we want to tell people is that this is a noble calling and it's a noble profession, and you should be proud to be able to do something to serve your community. And if you are doing that, we're proud to stand with you with that bonus and with other things. We're also going to pay, if someone's coming from out of state, any certifications, training, cost tests, whatever they have to do, we're going to reimburse it up to $1,000 to make it easier to be able to come. And we're going to have scholarships for Floridians to be able to go to law enforcement training academies, because we do it for colleges and universities. We need to do the same thing there. And then the House, to their credit, they're going even beyond what I called for. We have great school choice in Florida. We're proud of it. A lot of our private scholarships are targeted to low-income families, which it should be. But we also understand that, when you're in public service, you ain't living high on the hog. And so this bill is going to expand our family empowerment scholarships for every law enforcement family in the state. So if you want to take a scholarship and go to the school of your choice, you're going to be able to do that once this bill becomes law. They're also doing something that I think is very good. They're creating a program where they're encouraging every school district in Florida to partner with local law enforcement agencies. and basically expose students to what a career in law enforcement means, also expose students to how the criminal justice system operates. I think, one, that will cause some people to want to go into it, but I don't think that's the biggest benefit. I think what it'll do is it will disabuse a lot of these kids of the false narratives that you see being peddled by media, by unscrupulous politicians. And so they're going to be able to see that, and they're going to understand what it means to wear the uniform, the challenges that these communities face, and how really the people standing on the wall are keeping us safe. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see that come to fruition. We look forward to that making it through both chambers and me being able to sign it into law. But I can tell you, once we do that, there's not going to be any question. People around the country, they're going to know that Florida is the place to be for law enforcement because we have your back. We're honored about the support for the 2022 re-election. The good thing is like, when you're going out of this, like the first time when you're first running, like no one knows. You don't really know what people will do. They'll always tell you they're going to do these great things, but how many of them actually follow through with what they said they were going to do? Well, if you look at what we said we would do across the whole range of issues, we've accomplished what we promised and then some. And that's what I think is important, that when we're out here and I tell you I got your back, you don't got to worry about whether that's something that, you're going to be able to cash that check when you need to. If I'm with you, I'm with you. We follow through with what we said, and I don't know what challenges are going to come in terms of law enforcement over the next 4 or 5 years. There's going to be challenges that we're not even thinking of, but whenever those challenges come, you're going to have somebody that's going to be standing with you. And when you have all the nonsense that we see going on in our country, unfortunately. Yes, corporate media narratives. Big tech will censor things that they don't like and try to enforce their own narratives. You got a lot of stuff that gets put out there. I mean, honestly, the schools, we are working to give parents the ability, and you should have the right, to inspect the curriculum, know what's being taught, and everything like that. There's a lot of places they don't want you to do that. Is because they're trying to distort American history, they're trying to divide kids on racial lines, which is not good. But I'll tell you, some of those curriculum, this ideological curriculum, they attack the police in some of these curriculum. They talk about defunding police. They talk about all these different things. So that is going to be something that's going to be very big. But you have all these different things, and so you really need to be able to stand up, yes, say the right things, stand for the right things, but have the courage to see it through. Have the courage not to back down. Have the courage to walk the line. And that's what we've done in the state of Florida. Anything that we've done, when people come at you, they throw the flaming arrows, I stand firm, we fight back, and we win. And that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
In 22. That wears the uniform in the state of Florida, God bless you for what you do. If they say anything else, they have to admit that you got a governor that stands with you and that appreciates you, and we'll continue to do that. And as for me, I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish in Florida. We've accomplished more. I'd put it up against any other governor. I think we've accomplished more than anyone thought was possible. But all that being said, I have only begun to fight. Thank you. Endorsement letter.